Как мне отдать музыки? Так людям что-нибудь себе не будет, себе будет. Ну вот это он имеет, это не оправдание. Ну просто я говорю, ну и ладно, и что дальше? И вкусней, вкусней. Рационально используется. Да, нет, проблем. Абсурдно. Абсурдно. Семанский язык ты видишь. Bye-bye. Ладно, понял. Ты помнишь, ты не понимаешь. Я раньше говорил,
la parte di ta 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 ta. Quindi io posso in realtà scegliere il tempo in tanti modi, devo capire qual è il tempo, giusto? Quasi sempre.
Quando
Niente.
да, конечно, говорите, да, играется рядом. А мы какой-то вот это занято. Их. I'm hungry. Бежишь. Сколько сака? Эй. Голодный. Холодный. Холодно. Мяу. Разрешено. Почему меня никто не смотрит? Не смотришь ты. А, ну да. Большая. Я смотрю. Вот наоборот, значит,
Чей такой? Мам!
KFC.
I hear what you say. Shark Soup. And if you'd like to listen to this one with a backing track, that's available here. Thanks so much for being with me. If you'd like any more information on any of those pieces, if you have any questions, please get in touch. Or if you'd like to watch a tutorial on any of those pieces, they are available for you by becoming my Patreon page. Take care. Bye-bye.
Findet ihn nahezu überall, im Meer, im Flüssen und in Schäden. Unseren Müll. Vor allem liegen eigentlich überall dort, wo Menschen unterwegs sind. Das große Problem.
Well, welcome to today's talk. It's Tuesday, the 20th of December, the shortest day of the year. Now, if there's something good about Omicron, at least it's predictable. We did predict it would become the dominant variant all over the world, in the United Kingdom and the United States quickly. Let's just confirm that now. Now, this is the latest data from the UK here. These bits here are still incomplete. So the Omicron is the purple. Just it's increased so dramatically in such a short period of time. So basically from the start of December, we've gone from nothing up to about 71.6% in the UK. The official percentage in the United States, as we'll see, is even higher. There it is, it's about 75%. Now, this has gone in the United States even quicker. So 4 weeks ago, there wasn't any at all. 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, last week. Now, the dominant variant by quite a long way. This could partly reflect the fact that they've been a bit slower with the sequencing in the United States. But we've certainly got to the point now where it's the predominant variant. Now, the interesting thing to note here, and you've probably spotted this yourself, is a really important point. Let's just look at the American data again here. We see that it looks like Omicron is displacing Delta. So Delta is getting less. Whereas in the UK, we've still got quite a lot of Delta. So in the UK, we've kind of got both worlds. Although, to be fair, the proportion of the Delta is decreasing, I think I could say that. But we've still got both, whereas in the United States, it does seem to be more of a displacement exercise. So not so good news for the UK there, slightly better news for the United States, potentially. Now, these are the hospitalizations in South Africa, and they are still gradually. This data here is incomplete, of course. So some increase. But remember, we've got 7,500 people in hospital in the UK with coronavirus at the moment, with COVID at the moment, mostly due to the Delta variant. So to actually have 9,000 people in hospital who've been diagnosed with SARS coronavirus 2, and in the case of South Africa, we know it's Omicron. So 9,000 people in hospital for a population of 60 million. It's only slightly more than the UK is now, and this is after 4 weeks, just over 4 weeks now, of Omicron in South Africa. So I think this is pretty encouraging data, and it's looking more encouraging day by day. So yes, there's 9,000 people in hospital, but we believe that more than half of these are incidental findings. In other words, they were diagnosed with Omicron when they were admitted to hospital for something else, because everyone who is hospitalised has to be tested, of course, for SARS coronavirus 2, and in South Africa, it's virtually all Omicron. So bear in mind that half of these are incidental. When we look at the number of patients who are actually oxygenated in South Africa, it's under 1,300 patients oxygenated in hospital, diagnosed with SARS coronavirus 2 Omicron, out of the population of people, and 244 patients ventilated, which is actually a relatively small number. So this is after a month of Omicron now, so it's looking not too bad. Now let's just look at the United States cases here. So here we have the United States, and we'll see the cases in the States are, this isn't really showing the data that well in the States, it's a bit out of date. But this is mostly Delta cases here. We know Omicron's taken over. Now, deaths in the United States have remained reasonably high, unfortunately. And can we see the number in hospital in the States? Well, yes, we can. We see it is starting to go down slightly, and by different age groups as well as the total amount. But this is variable depending on the state. So it does depend on the particular state involved. So if we look at, don't waste too much time. Let's look at a random one. Let's look at Idaho. You see it's gone down there nicely. What I was going to show you if I had more time was it's still fairly high in some of the New England states. Hospitalizations are quite high there. Vermont at the moment, for example, is high, with a lot of people off sick as well. So it is patchy depending on the area concerned. So US cases, US hospitalizations, Omicron in the States. Now, this is the latest from the CDC. This is what they've said today. We don't know yet how easily it spreads. So the CDC don't know yet how easily Omicron's really, because we've been having a pretty good idea on that for some. So I'm not sure why the CDC is saying it doesn't know yet how easily it spreads. Let's take some evidence we've looked at. Scientific influenza group on modelling from the UK. Doubling time is around 2 days, typically about 2.4 days in the UK. So we do know that. So quite why they've said that, I don't know, because we do know that. We also know report 49, growth population distribution, immune escape of Omicron in England, 5.41-fold higher risk of reinfection. So we do actually know a bit about that. I'm not quite sure why the CDC say they don't know at all. Then the CDC also gone and said they don't know anything about the severity of illness it causes. Well, we just looked at the South Africa data, where it's caused significantly less serious illness. Now, I suppose you could say the CDC is right, because they don't know exactly how this is going to unfold in the United States. So that's true, but we do have some pretty good ideas. So quite why they're feigning, or not feigning, but saying they're completely ignorant is a bit surprising. London data, for example, from the COVID symptom tracker app, Omicron cold-like symptoms rapidly taking over in London. Top 5 symptoms that we know about from the very app are the first, runny nose, second, headache, third, fatigue, fourth, sneezing, fifth, sore throat. So we do know a bit about the symptoms, and they tend to be these common to look good. We also know the South African presentation was described as blocked over a nose, headache, tiredness, sore throat, body aches. So again, we do kind of know that. And then the CDC also say, or we also don't know how well available vaccines and medications work against it. So the CDC don't seem to know that, but we looked at evidence from South Africa again, which shows that 2 doses of Pfizer gave 33% protection against infection with Omicron relative to the unvaccinated, but that was down from 80%. So we do know that the vaccine, 2 doses in protecting against symptomatic disease, goes down from 80% down to 33%. They didn't mention that, because we do know this is all evidence based. We know 70% protection against hospital admissions and Omicron infection in South Africa relative to the unvaccinated, down from 93% with Delta. So again, we see a 90% reduction in protection, down to 70%, at least in the South Africa data. So the CDC are technically right in saying this, that they don't know what it's going to be in the United States. Of course not, but we've got some pretty good ideas, actually. I'm not quite sure why they are not admitting to knowing slightly more about it, because they should be a fairly intelligent, well-qualified bunch. Anyway, moving on to the UK, COVID symptom tracker data. This is always the most up-to-date, of course. 1.4 million people symptomatic in the UK at the moment. 137,000 new cases. We do believe that the number of Omicron cases is much higher than this, so we must conclude that a lot of the Omicron cases are asymptomatic or minimally symptomatic, and the overall prevalence is certainly going up, as we've said, 1.4 million. And the UK official data, well, we are seeing the increase in cases, of course, as we know, this dramatic increase on the week. When we actually look at cases, though, on the day-by-day basis, we do actually see that the increase is high, but it doesn't seem to be going up any further. It seems to be sort of bobbing around this level of 90,000 a day. And when we look at healthcare in the UK, we actually see that the number of patients in hospital on average throughout the country is actually down slightly. Now, the hospitalisations, I did check on this before we started. In London, they were about 200 yesterday, 201, I think. Now they're about 240. So London, that is leading the way in terms of Omicron in the UK. There is some increase in daily hospitalisations in London, but it's not huge. A lot of the problem in London is that there's so many staff quarantined because so many staff have come into contact with the variant. So what the government are doing is they're looking at reducing the isolation period after exposure from Omicron for those that are fully vaccinated from 10 days down to 7 days, and that would immediately, of course, increase the workforce by 30%. Deaths in the UK, well, thankfully, still going down. Now, of course, we know there's a delay with Omicron. No one's being naive about this, but that's where we are now. So that is some data from the UK, a bit more from the UK here. This is the Omicron UK data from the UK Health Security Agency. That's this site here. In the 50,363 in the past 24 hours, so fairly, which is a very good proxy for it, another 18,143 cases. So we can see officially diagnosed cases in the UK, somewhere over 200,000 now in officially diagnosed cases. And of course, we know the real number is probably that per. We have, well, these are new daily confirmed cases. So the United Kingdom going up quickly, Ireland also increasing with Omicron.
Информационную картину дня, как всегда, дополнят новости спорта в студии Марина Зябина. Здравствуйте. 46 наград. Такой итог выступления спортсменов Удмуртии в Уфе на Международном форуме боевых искусств. В его рамках проводились и всероссийские соревнования, мастер-классы и семинары по 15 видам боевых искусств. Это кусики, комбат, самооборона, тэквондо, айкидо, ушу и не только. Нашу республику на этом старте представляли атлеты из Ижевска, Можги, Воткинска, Увы. Все показали отличную технику, завоевали медали. Молодцы. Там же в столице Башкортостана прошел еще один турнир – Кубок страны по национальному многоборью. Заявилось на этот старт более 250 атлетов из 43 городов страны. Были там и наши земляки Евгений Богданов и Мария Загуменова. Евгений в категории мастерс 35+, занял почетное 3-е место. Мария в женской категории А группы «Элит» была 4-й, а конкуренция была жесткой. Впереди крупный старт и у стрелков из лука. В конце января в Орле чемпионат и Кубок страны. К нему наши атлеты усиленно готовятся. Накануне на Кубке Удмуртии ребята показали неплохие результаты, которые позволяют им рассчитывать на высокие места и на национальном.
Больше нет. Я родился в прекрасном городе Санкт-Петербург 3 лет назад. Это были 90-е годы, тогда, когда Россия просто рождалась. Сложно сказать, чего я достиг к 30 годам.
Самым непростым выбором в моей жизни это был, наверное, выбор жить или умереть.
Технологии, которые мы разработали, это искусственный интеллект против рака, как его хотя бы остановить, если не полностью победить.
Мы интегрируем людей с ограниченными возможностями в общество.
Что такое свобода? Отсутствие страха менять свою судьбу.
Рецепта того, что должен делать человек, чтобы он был счастливым, нету. Если у тебя есть понимание того, зачем ты встаешь утром, то мне кажется, вот это вот и есть такой рецепт счастья.
Что прям вот так? Да.
Before I'm still talking about music. You don't read music. So
No.
how do you write music without being able to read music?
You know what's so interesting? Last night I was trying to fall asleep, and you know, when you TiVo stuff and you look at the list that, you know, over time that accumulates, and Nick's movie Drumline from, I think it was 2002, was on, and he plays this brilliant drummer who's gotten into this school, gotten a scholarship, and they find out that he doesn't read music, but he's literally the best drummer that they have. And so I was watching this, and he's lying there asleep, and I hadn't seen it in so long, and I'm like, that's pretty amazing, because I always, like, I do wish that I read music, but when I was little, I was 6 years old, I was taking piano lessons, and it was with a friend of my mom's, and I kept playing by ear.
But is that, do you sit down at a piano and compose? Is that how you do it? And then somebody else takes it down?
No, sometimes, yeah, I've written like Vision of Love and...
Привет, я эксперт из онлайн-бухгалтерии Контур-Эльфа. Если вы недавно открыли свой бизнес или только собираетесь это сделать, скорее подписывайтесь на наш канал. Мы поможем выбрать между ИП, самозанятостью и ООО. Подскажем, какая система налогообложения вам лучше подходит, про КВЭДы, КУДИРы и все эти сложные слова тоже расскажем. И очень просто. Подписывайтесь, чтобы не потерять.
And All I Want for Christmas Is You, and certain songs that I start to write on the piano. But because I don't consider myself a great pianist by any means, I prefer to work with someone who I can collaborate with, and I can sing.
You sing it. You sing it.
But, singing the chords to them.
You sing it and he or she does the chords.
Yeah. So actually, they're doing the chords with me.
Yeah.
Because if I say I wanted to go, it's different than like, do you know what I'm saying? If you throw one kind of minor note in there, it changes what I'm hearing in my head, and I don't stop until we get.
So you sing your songs, and you compose your songs by singing them to someone. Boy, I'd like to be there when you're composing. Wouldn't that be fun?
That would be cool.
It's cool if you're with a really good piano player, and that's when I write my best, because it's almost like they can read your thoughts when you sing, you know, words to them. And I usually, you know, work with people who are not just one genre, like a lot of people that maybe start in church and then they go and move to R&B and, you know, have like rock, you know, as well. So that's why I got along with Randy so well, because he knows Randy Jackson.
So he can do anything.
Yeah.
I am in another of your songs.
You are.
I am. Bet you're gonna know. We'll play a little bit of it. You're gonna make me a
I gotta hear Barbara say the title again. Say it again, Barbara.
Bet you're gonna know.
That right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm talking about right there.
What's wrong? What's wrong?
Bet you're gonna know.
What you gonna know?
We actually call it betcha, but that's
Okay,
funny. I forgot that I put
Bet you gonna know.
in there. And
Just play it.
I can't
Just play the darn thing. About how it feels and her heart's been says
Wait, I missed it. What was said
what
there?
she says at the end of it. She's talking about how it feels and her heart's been broken and so forth. And then she says, this is for real, for real, for real. Oprah Winfrey's whole segment
Тебе это ты хочешь свою жизнь провести в вихрях бреда? Вот во всем вот этом. Ой, я да, нет, вот все. У тебя время на это что ли есть? У тебя что, жизнь искусственная что ли? Да, то есть я поняла тебя наоборот. Нет, мы вообще никто слушать не будет. Я тебе просто объясняю, что да. Мы, да, понимаю. Да, наоборот, да. Я, ну и что? И? Ну, он про себя это имел, да. Нет, это понятно, что я профессионал, я все равно буду слушать. То есть я просто, да, как бы, ну, то есть, да. Смотри, я песни спели, что-нибудь там, он, типа, хочу себя что-нибудь там убить или еще что-нибудь, да, или, ну, например. И ты как нормальный зомбарь пошел то же самое. Или там, ой, я так тоскую! Как это я отец слышу. Да. Типа того. И ты, и чё? И ты понимаешь. У тебя на это время есть, что ли, в твоей жизни нормально? Да, понимаешь. То есть, как бы, да, чем-то надо понимать. Да. Ну нет, это я к тому, что тут такой романтизм, все такие, да, вообще просто пошли, как будто так надо, понимаете. Так нет, ой, все такие, да не надо. Нет, я не должен. Ну и что? Да. Что делать? Детей рожать? Значит, не заниматься сексом. Значит, детей рожать, одно из двух. Не заниматься, понимаю. Пошла нахер отсюда, нездоровая. Так что, тебе недостаточно? Нет, я антиполитик, какой-то, пошел нахер. Ты чего? Нет, я учусь только своим, да, мне не касается, что ты лезешь. Я просто, он про тебя говорил, это, да. Ну так и есть, да? Это уже другое. А зачем это делать, это мне не касается. Да. Ну, людям это надо, потому что люди покупают. Тоскливые, да, потому что, ну, типа, ну, что, денег не выводить, что, как вот объяснить, что люди покупают, потому что это им надо, надо их всего. Не знаю, это навивается, они такие, да не надо тут негде заблуждаться, потому что, да, но на себе так думать просто, да, вот это если, да, ну, хорошо. Нет, это другое. Ну ладно, учись. Ладно. Да, ой, да ладно.
Now, what does that all mean?
60 minutes.
60 minutes.
That's
Yeah.
really real.
Я не против, как бы, я за только, да.
Real,
It's that real.
and the rest of it is not real.
No, what it means is, song begins, and it's kind of setting the tone for the album because it's like that you're gonna know how it feels, and so it's like it's a story where the man has cheated on the woman, and of course they could take it, whoever wants to take it the opposite way could do that. So this has gone on, and I describe, the color of the woman's dress that's on the floor, and then I leave and go to,
you know, a friend's house and this whole thing. And then the sort of like towards the end, before I hit the real outro, I say this is for real, like this actually happened type of a thing. You know what I mean?
Like Oprah is real, and I am real.
You are definitely real. And when we go on your shows, it's for real.
Yeah.
That's what it's trying to say.
And you're going to be in The View for real on Friday, October 2nd. Well, for the movie Precious, because I heard you talking about it the other day, it opens on November 6th.
Yes.
And it's been getting incredible buzz. And what is interesting, the girl who plays Precious is a very sad girl, very overweight, no confidence in herself. And you play a social worker. You are almost unrecognizable. The director made you as unattractive as he could, and you allow this. Now, you know, you could have said this is taken away from my glass.
Ты с этой щепаниной с ума сойдешь. Тебе баба не дала, что-то или она... Не relationship, а ты ее трахаешь, и она беременеет. Все намного проще. У тебя на остальное, и у нее тоже нет времени на остальное. Просто я тебе объясняю. Ну тогда не трахай. Ну, лучше письку подрочи тогда, сиди, как бы, да. То есть, как бы, да, жизнь свою не трать, она у тебя одна единственная. Да, как бы, на всяких мымр, и в том числе деньги, время. Просто ты мужик, нет, прагматично. Надо, как бы, все, это самый-самый вариант. Все, да, типа того. И нормально. И я тебе говорю, они точно так же устроены. Они только для все. Для них это тоже нормально. Это даже лучше, чем нормально, но они не обязаны, ну, как бы, понимаешь, меня это не касается. Но для тебя и говорит так. Нет, это не агрессивно, это просто так вот. Это просто я тебе говорю, что одно так вот, да, это уже от тебя зависит. Если ты агрессивный, то это просто агрессия к тебе уже как хочет. Или там свои какие-то, меня не касается. Недонученные детей, да, поняла. Ну, вот это меня не волнует, я просто тебе объясняю, что как бы, да. То есть на это все ахинея, ты с ума сойти, на это есел. Ты хочешь 30 лет умереть, что ли, или что, 26? Как, и причем умереть не как нормально, а как членосос от сифилиса, это вообще чего-нибудь вообще непонятного. Ну, даже не обязательно там заболевание какое-то, а просто как вообще в позоре, блин, да. Как нимфоманка, которая безумная какая-нибудь, да. Это да, как презренный антиспециалист, просто когда, да, понимаете, да. Ну, это да, вот это, поэтому, да, женский специалист, потому что, я понимаю, да. Ну, Света говорит, да, ну, знание силы, типа того, и знание получается умение, то есть, в принципе, это одно и то же, наверное. Да. Ну, хорошо, и что не одно и то же, и, ну, тогда знай, но не умей, ничего, ну, тогда будь теоретиком музыки, да, тогда не делай музыку, ну, все не твое, значит, да, создавай просто, да, типа, понимаете, да. Не, он про себя так думает. Ну нет, просто он это про себя так думает. А, это что? А, это, ну это нет, это нет. Сумасшедший. Ладно. Нет, ну ладно, я не волнуюсь. Просто это просто явление, ты знаешь, это просто всего лишь навсего размножение, да. То есть как бы, ну хорошо, да, все равно точка, да, понимаешь. Да, поэтому этот, ну, он, нет, наоборот, ну, он на себе так, ну, он пошел нахер. Наоборот, да. Ну и чё, не согласен, да. Да, ну да, вот это не буду. Да, меня это не волнует, ну и чё. Понимаю, это, да. Да, понял. Да, ну, чтобы этого не было, да, понятно. Или практически свести как бы к минимуму, так скажем, да. Да. Вот, кстати, да. Профессионал просто, да. Поэтому
Hi, and welcome to another episode of. So today I wanted to have just like a sit down and chat kind of.
Нормально всем nормально, короче.
Glamorous look, like, you know, the body, the gowns, the stuff, and here you are, this drab social worker. Is this because you really want to be a serious actress, or is this a kind of, you know, once in a lifetime fun thing?
No, I felt that with the whole situation with glitter, it was like so not.
Yeah, the last movie.
Подвинься.
Марка,
Его я описываюсь.
Манюня.
Вот таким оригинальным образом зародилась наша дружба. Что вы тут затеяли?
Ба.
Ну-ка повертись. Грудь моряка, жопа индюка. Да.
Путешествие в советское детство. Манюня. С 15 декабря. Только в ОК.
Валя, не волнуйся, за квартиру денежку закинул еще вчера на рыбалку.
Штраф оплатил?
Да, и штраф платить.
Ты когда дома будешь? Зайди в магазин, еще шпротики мне возьми, моих любимых, которые я...
У тебя нет на это время, представляешь? Вот просто ты представь, что у тебя нет на это время, на это потребление, вечные сериалы, на всю эту херню, блин. Вдруг хотя не раздевают, вот сидят какие-нибудь там жлобы, которые такие, ну такие, понимаешь, да. Правильно, чтобы ты их не смотрел, понимаешь, да, ну долго сделал.
There was nobody around me to say, you don't do this, you don't do that. We're not doing this without the script being finished. It was rewrites every day. There was no support, and it was still in a weird situation where I was on Sony as a recording artist, and it was a Sony thing, and it was.
So you wanted to say, you know what, I can so act.
Yeah, and even then, had things been different, and there's so many things I don't want to blame everybody else. I'll just take the blame myself. But I just feel like that was then, and it's taken 8 years, and I've done 2 other films. I did another project with Lee called Tennessee, and not a lot of people saw that movie because it didn't have a wide release, but I'm proud of it. And I did another movie with Mira Sorvino and Melora Walters called Wise Girls. And I think all of those, they were all character roles. And they really helped me. And I did, it wasn't about money or about any of that stuff. They were definitely more glamorous than the social worker, but it wasn't about glamour.
This film, from what we hear, everybody's going to be talking about
Yeah,
it.
sure.
And,
Jeffrey talks about it a little bit. She's got a role in it.
She's hilarious. She's so good in it.
and you, as I said, you are unrecognizable and very believable.
But I've read books about your acting before. I mean, people have said you're a good actress. And before this, I've read the reviews.
Thank you. I mean, I think it's maybe some of those films, the independent films that
Yes.
I did. Yeah,
Yes, exactly.
They did get some nice notices in Variety and other places.
But they're gunning for you because you're Mariah Carey.
Well,
So you got the album coming out. You got a new one.
Session with you today, talking about my shame. It's a little bit dramatic, but I wanted to cover the result.
Горячая еда надо поесть, пока я не завершу. Надо попу! Вообще так идиот.
Ведущий инженер Удмуртнефти Илья Ильин, несомненный герой минувшей недели, его ноу-хау стал победителем межрегиональной научно-технической конференции молодых специалистов Роснефти. Эксперты уже подсчитали, экономический эффект от внедрения проекта Ильи составит более 11 миллионов рублей в год.
Цель моего проекта в прогнозировании отказов, оборудования, сбывания данных датчиков телеметрии, которые установлены на насосном оборудовании.
А вот Александра Макаренко полностью оправдала свою педагогическую фамилию. Для конференции она представила свой проект по модернизации программы «Школа, вуз, предприятие».
Сама программа состоит из 3 этапов. То есть на первом этапе мы работаем с выпускниками разных классов, мы их мотивируем, приглашаем на профильное направление вузы. Мы работаем со студентами, то есть мы их оцениваем, устраиваем стажировку, практику на рабочих местах на предприятии. И затем по максимуму стараемся их пригласить специалистами к нам в общество.
Проект Александры занял 3-е место. Такого же успеха добилась и инженер Софья Гребенкина. Она предложила необычный метод поиска новых месторождений за счет нового взгляда на строение и процесс образования залежей.
Мы уже выполнили по анализу, по изучению и спрогнозировали, что вот здесь конкретно могут быть залежи нефти. И сейчас уже остается только получить, допустим, разрешение на бурение скважины и на опробование этой залежи.
Всего в копилке научных достижений молодых специалистов Удмуртнефти и ее дочерних обществ 10 наград. Золото, 2 серебра, 3 бронзы и 4 победы в номинации.
Участие в конференции для молодых специалистов дает им возможность внедрить свой проект как в своем обществе, так и во всех дочерних обществах Роснефти, а также, слушая, смотря работу других участников, это понять, какие сейчас актуальные направления и проблемы необходимо решать в рамках всей компании.
Теперь молодым специалистам предстоит воплотить свои идеи в жизнь. По итогам конференции более 100 проектов рекомендованы к реализации в периметре компании «Роснефть» по всей стране. Дмитрий Вороновин, Юрий Дроздов. Новости.
Новогодние праздники хочется просто быть уверенней.
Алиса, включи.
Говорите. Отдых с телевизором на платформе Яндекс.ТВ. Покупайте телевизоры с Яндекс.
Воскресенье, утро, перекресток Тарикса. Странно, но мне почему-то нравится. Алины, да какая разница, клади и то, пусть в холодильнике валяется. А ты чего, заболел? Ты чего улыбаешься? Ты же орешь и вынимаешься. Вези тележку еще, тут одной не управится. Что со мной? Зачем я покупаю каперсы? 3 десятка яиц, хлебцы, 8 видов сыра, колбасы, спалила. Пойдем домой, я устала. Это я сказал? Уезжать рано. Мы что, поменялись телами? Это не по акции. А ну-ка я сказал. У меня есть кэшбэк на неакционные товары. Что происходит? Ты не ешь пирог с вишней. 20% кэшбэк на свежую выпечку. Зачем вам столько готовой еды? При покупке от 2 плюс такой же кэшбэк. Не тупи. Взяли кофе. А почему не оба? Ну так 100% кэшбэк на что-то одно-то. Чего это? Пакет от перекрестка и пятерочки. Положи на место. Да, просто перепутал полочку. Пакет нужен? Нет, у меня свой пакет. Что это? Это мне? Да, на кэшбэк букет.
Welcome back to Gentlemen's Gazette. Today's video is all about tailors. We provide you with the ultimate guide on basic dining etiquette so you don't embarrass yourself and get ahead in life. This is part 1 in an ongoing series of etiquette, so please check out the other videos in our playlist. Tailors, probably something your parents taught you, but are actually far more important as adults. First of all, your tailors speak volumes about your refinement, and it's often interpreted as a sign of character. It's not at all about being snobby or showing off, but much rather to show respect. Your host and your dining partners will greatly appreciate your manners. Good table manners are proof of your social skills, and because of that, often part of an interview process for hiring positions or people where you have a lot of client contact. Just here, I talked to an entrepreneur, and he only hires people after he had lunch, dinner, and drink with them because he wants to see how they react in different situations
And without proper manners, you won't get the job, that's for sure. Table manners also help you so you don't embarrass yourself or otherwise draw any kind of negative attention to you. Last but not least, table manners make other people feel comfortable in your presence and therefore help to keep up the flow of conversation and entertainment, which is the main part of dining together with other people. It's very important to keep in mind proper manners will always help you and never hurt you. The good thing is they can be learned and it's never too late to do them. So what are table manners? Basically, they're the actions and the behavior at the dining table. In this day and age, you'll encounter a lot of informal dining situations, but that never means that table manners are required or appropriate. For example, a barbecue should never be an excuse to chew with your mouth open and make noises like a pig. After all, we're all civilized people. The rules, do's and don'ts we discuss in this video today apply to every basic dining situation out there that involves silverware. For more in-depth situations about very full dinners with multiple courses, lots of different silver and glassware, stay tuned for another video. Also, found at the dining table, usually there's an invitation, there's an RSVP, there's a gift, and we cover all of the before and after dinner etiquette rules in a different video. Let's focus on what happens when you sit down at the table. Perhaps just turn your cell phone ringer off when you enter someone else's home and put your phone in your pocket when you're with guests or if you're hosted. Don't leave your phone in the middle because you're much more likely to pick it up and look at it, which is being polite in the presence of other people. If the table is all set, you don't just walk in and sit down. Instead, wait for a cue of them, or if they sit, you can sit as well. Ideally, you want to sit up straight but comfortably. Don't slouch, cross your arms, or sit like you would on your couch at home while watching a football game. Don't expect to sit next to your partner and follow the lead of the host. Traditionally, couples are always mixed up to sit with different people, oftentimes man, woman, just so you would create an interesting way to stimulate conversation. If there's a napkin on the plate or next to a plate, put it on your lap right away. If the host or hostess wants to say grace, the gesture for what it is and move along. At the same time, do not offer to say grace yourself because people may not be religious at all. Let's take a look at place setting. In the Western world, an informal place setting will always have at least a plate, a knife, and a fork. If dessert will be served, you'll find either a little fork or a spoon on the top side of the plate. If soup is served or anything else that requires a spoon, you'll also have a spoon. At more formal dinners, place settings can be a lot more elaborate with several sets of silverware, and the general rule of thumb is to always work your way from the outside in, but we'll talk much more about that in our formal dining guide video here. On the top right side of the plate, you likely have the water glass, which is always filled, and the wine glass, which is empty to begin with. Sometimes you'll also find beer glasses, if you prefer that, if that's what's served with a meal. Proceed a little plate with an extra knife on the top left of your plate and butter. And silverware is arranged from the outside in. So if you see 2 forks and 2 knives, that means you start with the outermost fork and the outermost knife. That's usually for the appetizer or the starter course. When you're done with the course, place the fork and the knife at a 4 to 5 o'clock angle. That means you're done. If you're not done yet, you can have it in this position or in that position. That indicates that you're not finished eating yet. Do not put the used silverware back on the tablecloth or the table and simply put it on the plate so it can be taken away. Trust me, your host thought about it when they put together the place setting, and everything has a reason. In restaurants in the US, you often encounter 2 forks on the left and 1 knife on the right. In that case, use the outermost fork on the left and the knife on the right to eat your starter course, and then request a new knife, whether it's a steak knife or regular knife, for your main course. 3. Now it's time to serve the food. Most informal dinners are family style, meaning there are bowls or platters where food is served from. For formal dinners, courses are usually big, but we talk about the intricacies of that in our formal dining etiquette video here. With bowls and everything at the table, the cardinal rule is don't reach over anybody else and don't touch. To start, pass the roll around the table from the left to the right. When you get the bowl, you hold it and serve yourself. Then you pass it on to your neighbor on the right. Always use the serving utensils and never your silverware that's on your place side. Of course, if the host or hostess have a different idea, go with what they do. If you'd like seconds later on, or if you want salt, simply ask for it and don't reach it unless it's right in front of you. If someone asks you for either salt or pepper, always pass them both things together. When you serve yourself, be reasonable. You can count how many people are at the table, and everyone wants something, so pile it up on your plate. You never want to take more than your fair share, and keep in mind there will likely be seconds. Always be open-minded about the food being served. Even if you think you don't like something, the host likely put a lot of effort into the meal, and you should always at least try it. Just put a little bit on your plate and try. If you suffer from severe food allergies, you should tell the host before the dinner is cooked so they can make the proper arrangements. 4. Finally, it's time to eat. You should only start eating when everyone else has been served and the host or hostess starts to take their fork and leave. It's considered very impolite, sometimes even rude, to just dig in to your plate of food while the others are still empty-handed. When it comes to eating with silver, basically two schools of thought. One is the American way, and one is the continental way. With American way, you hold the fork in your right hand and you eat that way. If you cut off something, you transfer the fork to your left hand and have the knife in your right hand. When you're cutting, place the knife on top of the plate or on a knife rest if it's available, and then you transfer your fork from the left to the right again and eat. Because it's back and forth, it's also known as the zigzag method. On the other hand, with the continental method, you hold the fork in the left hand and the knife in the right hand. That way there's no switching up back and forth. Both the American and the continental method are perfectly acceptable. Personally, I prefer the continental version simply because I don't have to switch back and forth, and so I can focus more on the conversation rather than having to pay attention to my plate. Even within the continental school of thought, there are differences in how you put it to your mouth. Basically, you hold it with your left hand more like a pencil, or when you switch to cutting something, you turn the fork around about 180 degrees. For example, if you cut a piece of meat, you can leave the fork in the cutting position and move it right to your mouth. That way it's curved down. Or you can switch it up and bring the fork to your mouth facing up. Both styles are acceptable. When it comes to spoon, basically everything that is served in a bowl or a bowl cup is supposed to be eaten with a spoon. The key is to be comfortable with whatever method you use. It should always look effortless. Feel free to practice at home until it has really become a part of who you are, so you never have to think about it. So the big question is what to do with your elbows. As a general rule, don't put your elbows on your table when you're eating because it's considered to eat. Instead, leave your wrists on the table when you're chewing, or if you go with the American method, you can also keep your hand on it. Now, in between courses, or if you have a conversation after dinner, it's totally fine to have your elbows on the table. Just make sure that your body language is engaged and not slouching. When eating in company, pace is very important. The goal is to have a good flowing conversation, and because of that, you should neither eat too slow nor too fast. What I sometimes struggle with is speed. I eat way too fast. So company really helps me to slow down conversation. That way I can enjoy the food and the company at the same time. A good indicator are always the people around you or your host or hostess, so neither too fast or too slow. As a general rule, cut up the pieces of food as you eat them. Don't cut up everything before and then eat it piece by piece. That's only something you would do for a little child, not for a grown person. Also, take small bites and chew them and swallow them completely before you take the next bite. Always eat with your mouth closed and avoid making any chewing noises. Years ago, I used to eat a lot more salt than I do now, so I always made assumptions about the food and heavily salted before I eat. Don't eat it, God. Why? The hiring manager sees that you salt your food before you try it. They'll let you believe that you make assumptions rather than make decisions based on fact. They're less likely to give you a job. Even in a personal setting, it can be disrespectful to just salt your food without having tried it in the first place. Of course, if you've tried a food and it's undersuited to your taste, ask for salt and pepper, and it should be better. Now is also a great time to compliment the host or hostess on their table arrangements, their food, maybe the choice of their wine, or something that you genuinely like. Make sure you're sincere because otherwise people would notice. If someone asks a question when they're still chewing, finish chewing and then answer. Likewise, don't ask others questions while they're still chewing, because it may put them in the awkward situation where they still have to chew for 10-15 seconds. That creates awkward pauses. If bread is served with dinner, it's likely served in a basket on a bowl, and you pass it around just like any other serving bowl, from the left to the right. If you get the bowl, you take a piece of bread, put it in your plate, and you pass it on or put it back in its spot. Most of the time, butter is served with bread. Put some butter on your plate with a butter knife that is clean. Never use a knife or a piece of silverware that has been used. Depending on the country you're in, eating bread can also be different. Most people will butter their entire bread and pick it up by hand and take a bite and put the bread back. In Germany, for example, that would be a faux pas. Instead, you would take a piece of bread, break it off by hand, put a little piece of butter from your plate onto the bread, eat it, and then continue later on with breaking the bread, buttering it, and then eating it. So if you travel abroad, be aware of the cultural differences and try to be cognizant of them and respect them.
Девушки такие девушки. Но может страдать просто так, ни почему. Но какая была бы у нас душа, важно уметь радовать себя.
If you end up with excess in your mouth, use a napkin in your mouth and wipe it off right away. Make sure to always use just one side of the napkin and stick with it. Otherwise, if you have something that's stuck in your teeth, don't just sit there or try to wipe it off while other people aren't there. The worst thing you can do is hold up your hand and try to get rid of it using your finger and maybe make awkward noises. Instead, excuse yourself, go to the restroom, make yourself look presentable, maybe use a toothpick if one is available. For example, in Austria, you find toothpicks even at the finest restaurants, versus in Germany, toothpicks are not something you will commonly encounter. If you need to use a toothpick, it's always safer not to do so in public or at the table. So how should you excuse yourself? If you must leave because you expect an urgent call or you have to go to the restroom, say, excuse myself, I'll be right back. Please don't explain why you have to leave or what the reason is, or that you just had 4 beers earlier and that you really have to pee. That's just not an appropriate conversation at the time. So all you have to do in your chair, fold your napkin, the left on your plate or on the chair. No, it doesn't have to be folded like before, just make sure it looks neat. Also, push your tray back in. My wife always gets annoyed with me if I don't put my chair back. If you ever have to leave the table, make sure to keep it 5 minutes max. Otherwise, it's very rude and impolite to stay away from more than that. Now, all that being said, here are some things you should never do. Never use your fingers to eat food at the plate, or especially put the last bit of food onto the fork. Instead, I see a lot of people making that mistake completely unnecessary because you have utensils at your disposal. Likewise, never lick your fingers or your fork.
Конверсиации. Genial. Congenial. Так, что нам надо? Всегда.
On your plate afterwards, even though it's really, really tasty. Do not use your fork to cut something out. I see it time and time again where people are too lazy to pick up their knife and then they just try to push down, but it just shows that you don't have proper table manners. Also, don't flatten your food. I distinctly remember my grandpa always kind of smashing down everything and flattening out on his table because he wanted his food to cool down faster so he could eat faster. It's just a bad look and it creates a bad vibe. Now we talk about eating table. I remember always kind of smashing down everything and flattening out on his table because he wanted his food to cool down faster so he could eat faster. It's just a bad look and it creates a bad vibe. Now we talk about eating. What about drinking? As a rule of thumb, you should never drink unless your host has raised a glass to a toast or started drinking themselves. Typically toast with wine or champagne, maybe with beer, but definitely not with water or pop. If there's stemmed glass on the table, you should hold them by the stem. Don't let the host or other guests dictate how much alcohol you drink. You know your limits, and it's okay to say no thank you, or to simply not continue drinking your glass, even though it's still full or half full. Don't get wasted and keep your consumption moderate. You don't want to be the odd guy out who gets hammered when he's invited over for dinner, because it will likely be the last invitation for you. Generally, you should not ask for more wine or beer. A good host will notice that your glass is empty and offer for more beer. And it's okay to say no thank you, or to simply not continue drinking your glass, even though it's still full or half full. Don't get wasted and keep your consumption moderate. You don't want to be the odd guy out who gets hammered when he's invited over for dinner, because it will likely be the last invitation for you. Generally, you should not ask for more wine or beer. A good host will notice that your glass is empty and offer you more if they have more. Now, as I said before, the main goal of having dinner and company is to have a great conversation. And so your body language and how you converse are very important. It all starts with your voice. Moderate the volume a bit so you don't scream, because that can be very unpleasant. Let other people finish talking and ask interesting questions, and then listen. If you behave well, you're very entertaining, you may even end up with a compliment. If you want to learn how to accept one a graceful way, please check out this video here. At the end of the meal, just fold your napkin and place it next to your plate. Never put it on the plate. And most people will never call out bad table manners in person. However, they will reflect poorly on you, and you may not be invited back, or your invitations may be rebuffed. Now that you're quick, you make that next to your plate. Never put it on the plate. And most people will never call out bad table manners in person. However, they will reflect poorly on you, and you may not be invited back, or your invitations may be rebuffed. Now that you're equipped with this table etiquette knowledge, you probably know more than the average person out there. However, it doesn't mean that you should chastise others about their table manners, or even worse, criticize the host or tell them what to do, especially in a public setting, because that's very embarrassing. Instead, always be kind, be generous, ask questions, listen, be a good sport. In today's video, I'm wearing two suit separates, a jacket of one, which is a brown and blue Prince of Wales jacket, and a blue pair of pants from another suit. Together, they work quite well. I'm combining them with another pair of brown Oxfords that are half ropes with a hand-finished patina. I tie everything together with a pair of brown and light for bevel that pick up the color of the jacket and separate the shoes from the pants. My shirt is plain white with a classic collar and button barrel cuffs. My tie is made of English manner silk, and the pattern ties together the sole of my shirt as well as the pattern of my jacket. Provides enough contrast, and the pattern stands out from the background. The tie is from Philadelphia. I designed it, and you can find it in our shop here, just like the pocket squares likewise from Philadelphia. I chose a burgundy color that picks up the blue and yellow tones of the tie, the jacket, and the shoes, as well as the pants, and I chose a silk wool combination that ties together the flannel material of the jacket with the shinier silk texture of the tie. All right.
Very rich. Вот это блатное.